Good evening. Welcome to today's Tropics for August 17th, 2020. Please note, I am not a meteorologist, and this video is just a collection of my thoughts and opinions about the storms that I'm talking about. And for any decision making, please consult National Hurricane Center or your local officials. So today I'm looking at Invest 97L, which is currently entering the Caribbean, and Invest 98L, which is currently in the central Atlantic. So first off, let's look at Invest 97L. So it's this tropical wave that is again entering the Caribbean. It's a bit broad right now. The convection isn't too concentrated. It seems to be a bit more uh, widespread in the west side right now, but we'll have to see. It has a definite chance of actually developing as it gets further west, but definitely seems that in the short term it's going to struggle a little bit, not because of shear. In fact, you can see this pretty well-defined anticyclone. That's going to keep shear low under or over 97L unless it goes a bit to the south, in which case it'll have easterly shear. So it's not your usual westerly shear of the Caribbean. So shear isn't a huge problem. Not even trade divergence is a huge problem. In fact, they slow down, so you might have some trade convergence, which helps systems. But the main issue is it's moving too fast, and that means it's going to have a harder time generating surface convergence to generate more concentrated convection and close off. So it's definitely having a bit of a harder time right now. You can see in the right about now on the GFS, so it's 6 hours out, 0Z, about 15 minutes ago from when I'm recording, just about now. You can see that Invest 97L is northeast to southwest orientation here. And definitely watch this as the GFS likes to turn it a bit more to the north-south kind of orientation. Going a bit forward to early Thursday morning. See, it's gotten a bit further west. It's a bit more amplified now. And it's also, again, it's a bit more to the north-south. It's not quite there, but it's definitely more like that. And see little hints of something trying to get going here, but again, it's one model run, and the models have just been struggling a whole lot this season, it seems. So we'll have to see what ends up happening. At the same time, you have this trough digging down into the Gulf of Mexico, and that's what's going to keep it from just continuing to move west-northwest through the Caribbean. Instead, this will start pulling it more to the north, and you can see this on early Saturday morning. It's now gone all the way up to into the northwestern Caribbean, where conditions tend to be more favorable for systems to get going if they have struggled through the Caribbean, and this is no exception. It seems that tries to get it together, and that kind of makes it fall apart again. GFS has been weirdly conservative with these sort of storms, so this might not. But definitely seems there's going to be interaction with 98L and 97L. Doesn't seem that both are going to be strong. If one is strong, it's likely the other will be weak. We'll have to see which one tries to get going first. Definitely seems that Invest 98L might have the upper hand in the short term, but we'll have to see. As for intensity, it's a little bit more muddy. We'll have to see where it actually develops, and that will show where it might make landfall, if it's going to deal with some easterly shear, and then when it develops and how fast it can try to get going if it does. So it's definitely a lot of uncertainty. We'll know more as it tracks into the Caribbean. One interesting thing that's modeled is this jet here that is coming with that trough. And you might have a quick jet interaction with Invest 97L, so you might have it try to generate more convection in this upper region of upper divergence, and that might try to make it stronger. Eventually, this lifts out, and it seems it has an anticyclone after it gets over the Gulf of Mexico again, after tracking over the Yucatan. But definitely seems like, or it seems like it doesn't do much, or this model doesn't really do much with it. We'll definitely watch this system just in case, and the Gulf in general, just in case it tries to do any funny business. But it's a little early right now. It's just 5 days out, so we'll have that time to watch it go through the Caribbean, and by the time it gets here, we'll very likely know a lot more about the storm. Now let's look at Invest 98L. So this one is also likely to start affecting land within 5 days, and that's likely going to be the Lesser Antilles, unless it goes a bit more to the north, in which it'll probably pass over them with not or less impact. Currently, it's producing some decently deep convection. You can see it better in here, and seeing those little pinpricks of negative 80 degrees Celsius convection. So definitely there's a lot of instability in the area that it's working with, and in that case it is uh, generating some deep convection. It almost looks like there's a little bit of banding going on, but right now it's not a super organized area in the intertropical convergence zone. In fact, while you have this area of convection, this is like the western lobe of the wave. You also have this area to the east that's currently only partly on screen, and this area is going to travel a bit faster than the western lobe, and as a result they're going to try to merge, and that might delay some actual formation because it'll be a little messy then, but it definitely seems that the conditions won't be too bad for something to start forming in the main development region in the next few days. Now, this is just one model run, and for some reason it seems that the GFS doesn't seem to have a lot of convection with 98L, and it just does not develop much at all. And given more recent trends, in fact, the National Hurricane Center upgraded it to 60% chance of development within 48 hours and 90% chance of development within 5 days. Definitely seems that the GFS solution, where it just is strung out and struggles to develop the whole time, seems less likely. So, I'm not sure how reliable it would be for actual development, but it might provide at least an okay look at the actual conditions around the storm that are not really dependent on it, uh, since there is the wealth of data that comes with the GFS. So here you've got this tropical upper tropospheric trough. So this is that Tutlow basically that did shear Josephine, and that's why, or one reason why it ended up dissipating, because it couldn't actually have convection over its center. So that is still there. However, it's in the next few days. So this is on Thursday evening. It's going to orient itself a bit more north to south, and that means it's going to be a more narrow type of feature, and it's going to slowly move off to the east too. So that means it's probably going to be a more uh, passing feature. So it's not going to keep imparting shear on Invest 98L if it does. And so it doesn't. It seems to be a more transient feature than it was for Josephine, and even if it does end up shearing Invest 98L, disrupting its development or intensification, uh, it does seem that it'll pass, and Invest 98L might see a bit more of a favorable environment. For reference, because there's no low here, you can see that Invest 98L at this timestamp is around here, or it's not. Okay, it's around here, and the general wave envelope doesn't really have much shear over it. In fact, it might be enhanced a bit by the upper troughing, while it stays away from the actual the shearing part. So we'll have to see about that. The Euro was totally different. It pretty much starts developing it pretty quickly. Even this is tomorrow morning. It's about 8 a.m. Eastern time. And you can see it's not quite developed, but there are some areas of vorticity that are trying to get together and develop. So it's definitely a lot more put together than even the GFS solution 78 hours out. So this definitely goes stronger at first, and by Thursday morning, it's likely a tropical storm. It looks like, unless the 850 wind or millibar wind is way higher in the surface. But definitely here it's strengthening a little. But the problem is doesn't really, or not the problem, but it doesn't really strengthen it too much in the next couple days after that. It's possible that it gets sheared, but there isn't a whole lot of data with the free Euro model, so it's a lot of speculation. But as it goes further on, what you see is a stronger storm in this area with as it gets out of those less favorable conditions, so it starts strengthening again near the Greater Antilles, and then this area is basically where it tries to blow it up again. It's just one model run, may or may not happen. We're getting out pretty far too. This is Sunday evening, so this is almost a week out, and model forecasts, especially deterministic ones like this, aren't the greatest. So definitely take this with a grain of salt. But if there is a system here that is uh, like this one, and there isn't a strong 97L, which would have its own anticyclone, that would probably impart a lot of northerly shear from its anticyclone onto 98L. What the Euro here does is, I'll circle it for reference here. The low here is in an area with weak easterly winds. So that is very favorable upper air environment, and it's no real surprise why it pretty much bombs it out. Again, it's just one model run. You could have something completely different next. So definitely keep watching this, and especially if you're in some of the areas that it's expected to track, say the Lesser Antilles, a lot of the Greater Antilles, Bahamas, possibly even Florida or the East Coast in the long term, but that's a lot longer range. Just keep a wary eye on the system. If you aren't already, just be prepared for a hit by a tropical cyclone even later this season. Should be prepared already, but definitely a good idea to do that anyway. But definitely keep an eye on 98L. The best way to reduce any model uncertainty is definitely look at ensemble models. So this is the same model, but run a bunch of times. So this is the Euro ensemble. Again, the Euro model, slightly different conditions, run 50 different times. And you can see here there's already spread at 0 hours, and that just means that Invest 98L is not an actual tropical cyclone yet, so we don't really know where the center will be. So this isn't really a surprise, and thus it carries out this uncertainty. Ignore this. This is another wave behind that that's getting picked up. But anyway, this uncertainty is basically baked in, and it definitely means it's between whether it has a close shave with the Leeward Islands or it just completely misses and goes to the north. We definitely need an actual center here to see what happens. So where the center develops in here, if it does, we'll definitely know a lot more. You can definitely see some of the ensembles do what the or deterministic models do, and they basically hit the Bahamas, have that favorable conditions or those favorable conditions, and strengthen while recurving. While some are weaker and go into the Gulf, and basically once you get out here, you're like a week out. And of course, with ensembles, you're going to have a very large spread, and this is indeed what there is. Basically, like Louisiana to being or missing all land. So definitely don't look at deterministic models too closely because they will change at this point, especially without a center. But definitely keep your eye on this in this region. Also, let's take a look at the GFS ensemble. So there's 20 members here. It's a bit less dispersive and takes a lot of members closer to Florida and the Gulf, and definitely seems to be a lot less dispersive. There is a bias here to keep it under dispersive, and you tend to have weaker systems, which makes sense because this is also another version of the GFS, which keeps it weak, and it also keeps it more south and interacts with the Greater Antilles. So it makes sense why it keeps it weaker, but there are definitely some near or at hurricane force members, so Basically, the moral of the story here is if you're in, or if you're especially in the Leeward Islands and Greater Antilles, as well as the Bahamas, just keep your eye on this system. Hopefully, it's a bit weaker, but it's definitely worth keeping an eye on a storm coming into the area at this time of year. Otherwise, there isn't a whole lot much else to talk about in the Atlantic. If you have any questions or comments about my video, please let me know, and thanks for watching.